I want to turn to Steve Cortes in Arlington, Virginia. He's a senior advisor for the Trump campaign. Steve, welcome. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Tanya.
So we just heard Caitlin break down those voting rights decisions in Pennsylvania and North Carolina. Both of those went against Republicans' efforts. Why does the president seemingly want to make it harder for people to get their vote counted?
Sure. Well, listen, we do not want to make it harder for people to get their legitimate votes counted. We want to protect the sanctity of the ballot, and we want to protect the sanctity of the vote. And to do that, we also want to make sure that not only are only legitimate people voting, casting their ballots, but that also the count is as efficient as possible, so that there's not a chaotic count. So to us, the idea of open-ended extensions past Election Day for counting invites fraud. It invites a whole lot of instability, like we saw in this country back in the year 2000 in the state of Florida. We want to try to avoid that. So no, we want every person who's eligible to vote to be able to vote. But what we don't believe in is Democratic governors in places like Pennsylvania and North Carolina, and unfortunately, some activist judges making arbitrary decisions to say that the vote can continue 9 days after an election. We just think that it's wrong on principle. We don't think it's legal, even though courts have been upholding it so far. And it's also, in our view, it's an invitation to fraudulent behavior.
There doesn't seem to be any evidence, though, to support this often cited fraudulent behavior, that the GOP points to try to limit some of these voting rights. It would seem to most Americans that for the health of our democracy, you would want as robust participation as possible.
Oh, we do want robust participation, but it's simply incorrect to say there's not voter fraud. I mean, of course there is voter fraud. Now, is it systemic? Is it widespread? I mean, probably not, and we can certainly discuss that point. But voter fraud absolutely 100% exists, and what we're saying is you can create the conditions to entice voter fraud. For example, in a related way, this is why we're so against the idea of universal vote by mail. We believe in absentee balloting and voting by mail that way, where you request a ballot, it's verified, and you submit it by mail. But what Nevada is doing, for example, universal vote by mail, where they literally send a live ballot to every single person whose name is on the voter rolls. We know that Clark County, where Las Vegas is, they sent out over 1 million live ballots in the primaries. They got over 200,000 of them returned as undeliverable. So that's how inaccurate the voter rolls are, because people move, they pass away, all kinds of reasons that they're no longer voting there. So we are totally against, again, to protect the sanctity of the vote. The idea of sending out live ballots we think is a mistake. We also think it's a mistake to have an open-ended allowance for voting effectively after Election Day.
All right. There is nothing in the Constitution, though, that says votes have to be counted by Election Day. And this is an unusual year with COVID making many people afraid to go to the polls. I want to play some remarks by the president yesterday in Las Vegas, where he called for the courts to intervene if vote counting stretches beyond November 3rd. Let's listen.
I think they are underperforming. And I think on Tuesday we're going to overperform. And we'll see what happens at the end of the day. Hopefully it won't go longer than that. Hopefully the few states remaining that want to take a lot of time after November 3rd to count ballots, that won't be allowed by the various courts.
As we just mentioned, there's nothing in the Constitution forcing the count to finish on November 3rd. And states have never, many states have never officially certified their vote count the day after. It typically takes some time to have an official certified count. So what exactly is the president's strategy there?
No, what he's citing is the historical precedent from the year 2000, where we know the Supreme Court did have to intervene and finally rule on the vote count in Florida. And we're saying that it's potential that could happen again. Look, obviously, we hope not. We believe that we're going to win these states by enough of a margin that it's unnecessary to litigate or to have an ongoing count that could get chaotic in places like North Carolina and Pennsylvania. But we also know that we have historical precedent of federal courts stepping in fact, the Supreme Court with the final word in the year 2000. It's also one of the reasons that we were so insistent on making sure that Amy Coney Barrett be confirmed to the court as soon as possible, because if we do get to that situation, it's really important for this country that we have a fully staffed Supreme Court with 9 justices.
All right, so let's pivot now to the president's closing campaign message, because he's repeated some false comments that the U.S. is turning a corner on the coronavirus. His own chief of staff, Mark Meadows, admitted Sunday, quote, "We are not going to control the pandemic. Cases are still rising, particularly in key Midwest swing states like Wisconsin. And it's not solely a product of increased testing, as the president has claimed." So how does his campaign believe that downplaying the pandemic is the right closing argument to the American people?
Well, that's not our closing argument. You're mischaracterizing it. Our closing argument is clearly about the economy, the economic renaissance that is flourishing across this land. Just today, we got out unbelievable GDP numbers, 33% growth for the third quarter, by far the biggest quarter in all of American history. We also got out the lowest jobless claims of the pandemic so far in the last 7 months. So this economy is roaring back to life. And that is our primary value proposition. That is our closing argument to the American people. It's far and away the #1 issue on their minds. And it's also the most compelling case we have to make as a president who built prosperity not just once, but he's now doing it a second time again with the second Trump boom. And to continue and accelerate that expansion, the American people need to rehire Donald Trump as our national CEO. But listen, part of why the economy is roaring back to life is that we are learning how to deal with the virus. And I think what Chief Meadows was getting at is he means that we cannot completely control the spread of the virus. And that's true on an international basis. There's nothing uniquely American about this. As a matter of fact, cases are rising at a far faster rate in Europe than they are in the United States right now. The reason I bring that up is simply to point out that even harsh lockdowns do not stop completely the spread of the virus. So we believe that we need to very intentionally get back to normalcy in this country until we get a vaccine, which we believe is imminent. But in the meantime, we need to make sure that those who are not statistically vulnerable to the dire effects of the virus, and that is the vast majority of people in this country, who are not either very elderly or very infirm, those folks, the rest of us, need to get back to our economic lives, to work and play, church and school, all the things that we should be doing. We can take reasonable precautions, absolutely. We should take the virus seriously, but we cannot let it dominate our lives. We cannot live in irrational fear. And unfortunately, that's what Joe Biden is fomenting. We really have a contrast. You have Donald Trump's morning in America versus Joe Biden's dark winter, which is the phrase he uses.
Well, of course, to get the economy fully back, we do need to control the pandemic. His own, Federal Reserve Chairman has said that. But I want to talk about the president's need of a Republican Senate to pass his agenda in a second term if he's reelected. Yesterday at a rally in Goodyear, Arizona, he gave significant speaking time to a British politician, Nigel Farage, and Senators Mike Lee and Rand Paul. But he did kind of rush Arizona Senator Martha McSally through. Let's play that moment.
Martha, come up just fast. Quick. Fast. Fast. Come on, quick. You got 1 minute. 1 minute, Martha, say. They don't want to hear this, Martha. Come on, let's go. Quick.
What's behind that? I mean, he doesn't seem to be supporting McSally as much as you would think he would be. She is trailing big to Democrat Mark Kelly. Does he believe that maybe she's weighing him down in Arizona?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I think he was being funny there. The president's really funny at these rallies. It's clearly he has a shtick all his own that the crowd seems to love, and he was smiling when he said that. So I don't think there's anything nefarious at all going on there. And look, we do believe that Martha McSally can win. We're focused, of course, on our own race. We're going to let her team manage her race. But the president clearly wants to maintain control of the Senate because he can then continue with what has been one of the most successful aspects of his presidency so far, which is the appointment of judges to the federal bench, particularly Supreme Court justices, 3 right now, and the potential for, who knows, 1 or 2 more in a second term. So it's important for us, absolutely, to maintain majority control of the Senate. We believe we will. We believe Martha McSally will win. But again, I'm laser focused on this race, not those Senate ones.
All right. Well, Steve Cortes, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.